Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. In this video, I have good news for you. Mexico inflation held steady in June. The central bank will likely cut interest rates soon. Now, let's talk about it. If you're new here, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss my upcoming video. Also, if you enjoy reading, I recently started a newsletter, so the link is below. So, the headline of today's video is exactly what we are going to discuss in this video. In short, Mexico's annual inflation rate was unchanged in June. It was 4.81% compared to 4.87% in May. This report shows that the worst may be over, and which is a central bank of Mexico, may start cutting interest rates soon. This is good news not just for Mexico, but for the entire world, really, because Mexico is a major player in the automotive industry, and the lower interest rates are going to translate into more affordable cars for everyone. Before we move on, please take a second to hit that like button. It helps with the algorithm and helps my channel grow. Alright, now let's talk about some details, as you can see on your screens. Mexican annual consumer prices rose 4.81% in June, compared to 4.87% in May. That was the 13th consecutive month in which the inflation rate stayed within the central bank's 2.6% target range. The monthly variation was 0.4%, which was slightly higher than market expectations of 0.3%. However, core inflation, which excludes more volatile food and energy prices, slowed 5.44% from 5.54% in May. And this is a very positive sign. In fact, according to Reuters, all items with the largest upward contributions to total CPI in June were housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels, as well as food and beverages. Prices for these categories increased by 7.25% compared to the same month last year. In addition to that, Banxico's survey showed that prices at the local level in Mexico rose 0.46% in June from the prior month. And this is an important detail that you should know. Now, when it comes to the most recent rate decision, Banxico's board voted unanimously to keep the benchmark interest rate steady at 11% in June, after raising it to that level in the previous month. And this was the highest level since August of 2021. While inflation has generally come down from its peak of 8.15% in early 2022, the central bank is still concerned about the pass-through effects of higher global prices and the persistence of price increases at the local level. So, this is exactly why the rate cut is not expected until later this year. But it looks like the worst is behind us, and the rate cuts will happen sooner rather than later. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. What would you do if you were in their shoes? Would you also keep the rate hike steady, or would you cut the rate? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. So, the Bank of Mexico's next policy meeting is scheduled for August. And in the meantime, the central bank said it will continue to monitor the balance of risks surrounding the inflation outlook. In the statement, Released after the meeting, Banxico's board noted that there are still risks related to the war in Ukraine, as well as persistent inflationary pressures in the global economy. However, the board also acknowledged that there are signs that price increases are beginning to ease. As I mentioned earlier, the main concern is whether price increases at the local level will persist. In Mexico, the pass-through from higher global prices has been relatively contained so far. For example, the price of gasoline has risen less in Mexico than in the United States, despite higher oil prices. However, this may change if demand picks up and if the local supply chain bottlenecks persist. One thing that could help is a weaker peso. The Mexican currency has strengthened by about 6% against the US dollar this year. A weaker peso would make imports more expensive, which would tend to push up inflation. So, if the peso strengthens, it could actually put downward pressure on inflation. What I find interesting, and I think that this is something that you should know about, is that a strengthening peso is actually one of the reasons why the central bank has been hesitant to cut interest rates. The thinking is that if the currency keeps rising in value, it could push up inflation. So, the central bank may want to wait until the currency weakens before cutting interest rates. In fact, a senior central bank official recently said that the bank was concerned about the pass-through from a stronger peso. He also said that the bank was in no rush to cut interest rates, and that it would only do so once there was clear evidence that inflation was under control. So, what does this mean for you? Well, first of all, it means that inflation is under control. The central bank is likely to start cutting interest rates soon, and this will boost the economy and help the stock market go higher. Secondly, a weaker peso could help to boost exports. This is because it makes Mexican goods cheaper for buyers in other countries. This could lead to an increase in demand for Mexican exports, and this will help the economy grow faster. But it is important to note that a weaker peso can also make imports more expensive. This is why the central bank is likely to wait until inflation is under control before cutting interest rates. They don't want to risk reigniting inflation by weakening the currency. What do you think? Will the peso weaken? Do you think that the central bank will cut interest rates in August? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Alright, now let's get back to the video. Another good news is that the Mexican economy grew by 3% in the first quarter of 2023. This was the fastest economic growth in almost 2 years. And this is another positive sign that the economy is recovering from the pandemic and is on track for a strong recovery. In addition to that, the unemployment rate in Mexico is very low. It was 2.9% in April, which is near a record low. This is another positive sign that the economy is doing well. However, there are still risks to the outlook. For example, the war in Ukraine is still ongoing, and this is contributing to higher energy and food prices. If the war drags on, it could continue to weigh on the economy. Additionally, there is still some uncertainty about the global economy. If the global economy slows down, it could impact demand for Mexican exports, and this would hurt the economy. Despite these risks, the overall outlook for the Mexican economy is positive. The economy is growing, inflation is under control, and the unemployment rate is low. This is setting the stage for a strong recovery in 2023. Let me know what you think. What is your outlook for the Mexican economy? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Parton. And before you go, check out this video next. You may like it. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and share it with your friends and family. Subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any of my upcoming videos. And you can always unsubscribe at any time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for spending time with me. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in my next one tomorrow. Bye for now.